Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast, your weekly podcast for everything PowerShell. I am your host, Andrew Plaw, at Andrew Plaw Tech. And we have a very special episode ahead of us with a longtime friend of mine, actually, first time getting them on the pod, David Richmond. We're going to be talking about splatting, PowerShell, spreading it in your organization, discovering PowerShell light bulb moments, some pro tips along the way. David, welcome to the podcast. You're actually fresh off the heels of presenting at PowerShell Wednesday. How was that?
That's right. Yeah, we talked about splatting, which crazy word for something super cool. You use it a lot, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Once you see the light,
there.
It's hard to go back. Like if you see the actual use case and start using
Absolutely.
it's very hard to look at code that doesn't use splatting when appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, when I remember starting out before I knew about it, you just end up with code lines stretching halfway across the screen or wrapping. It's a nightmare. But no, just drop a hash table in. Instead of that argument list, one by one, you've got a nice clean hash table. You can get those equals signs lined up, and it makes your code so much cleaner. It's just beautiful.
It really is. And it makes it easier to follow along with code. It makes it easier to manipulate the splatted parameters as you go through things and start developing scripts or functions. It's just a tool that the sooner you use it, the better. So we always talk about on the podcast, splat. Well, thank you. Thankfully to your presentation, now people can actually go to a resource where we explore it firsthand. You shared screen, you showed some code, you showed it being used on the simple end, like with invoke REST method. It's a pretty common command, and how you can make use of it. And then you showed some very advanced use cases. So once you're already developing functions and things like that, how can you take advantage of splatting to the next level? So fantastic presentation, a lot of great stuff.
And thanks.
You got to be splatting out there.
You do. You have to. There's it's just super useful. Before you know it, you'll be doing things you never thought were possible.
Yeah.
That's PowerShell for.
And in case anyone has never heard the word splatting, they've kind of know we're talking about parameters a little bit. What is splatting though?
Well, let's say you've got a command, right? It's got 1 or 2 or 3 parameters on it. And take invoke REST method. You've got your URI, your method. Maybe you want to tack a verbose onto it so you can see some of the HTTP code output. Well, if you type those all on one line, invoke REST method URI, your long URI or URL, and then your method, it just stretches on. It's off the screen now. So instead of putting each parameter and its argument, another parameter and its argument all on the same line, you take those parameters and you create a hash table, right? Your @ curly braces, and then you put your parameter names as the keys and your arguments as the values. And then instead of having the long line, you've got just one single thing add to your command, which is @ on your hash table variable. It's probably hard to visualize. Go watch the other, and you'll see it. It makes your code so much cleaner, so much easier to maintain.
Bada bing, bada boom. You just take a hash table, you put your parameters in it, you use it whenever you call a command. End of story. You get to profit from that.
The splatting word, I imagine, comes from you take a little thing and it explodes out. Drop all those parameters in there. Yep.
And we're talking about curly braces. Yeah. We're talking about curly braces and @, and it can be hard to imagine if you've never seen it before. Help about _splatting. Just take a look at it. Just look at it. But yeah, fantastic presentation. Absolutely start using splatting.
Thanks.
And pro tip, if you're going to be asking questions and you're a beginner, fantastic. If you include splatting in the little code you send, like, hey, here's what I've tried, you're going to get some brownie points. I can guarantee you that. We love seeing splatting in the wild, especially adopted early, not just in those kind of advanced projects that we see out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's one thing, hash tables, they're stored in memory. That makes them really fast. But that means if you ever want to look at it, let's say you have your hash table saved in a variable and you output it. Well, since it's saved in memory, it's hashed, but it's not ordered. So it'll just be random randomly generated. What you put as 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 2, 4, 1, 3 when it comes out. So if you want, and I do this a lot, you don't have to, but it works. You can tack on the ordered type accelerator onto there to your hash table, and then you get that nice ordered list when you set it and when you look at it. That's I recommend it. Makes it a lot cleaner.
That's a pro tip. Number one, you had many pro tips and you are an advanced user. I will give you that. You've spent a lot of time writing PowerShell code and really diving into it. And in your presentation, you can just kind of tell you've put in the hours for sure.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Gosh, I can't even imagine how many hours of PowerShell. Wow. That's fun to imagine. I guess thousands. It'd have to be.
You could track it. I think they could come up with some things, but then people say it gets kind of stressful when you track. It's like, okay, I'm on the clock. Oh, got a code. Just let it come to you,
No time tracking, but I've got, measure the amount of code lines and all the various scripts. It's fun to put in your performance reviews. And hey, you can write a script to measure the amount of code lines you have in your repositories locally. Fun stuff. Yeah, I've done that. Leaders eat that stuff up.
When did you first get into PowerShell? Because it seems like it's been a while. I know I've known you for several years, but you were already into PowerShell by then.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I think about it, it wasn't even 10 years ago, which, sounds like maybe that doesn't sound as silly as it is, but I've done other scripting for a lot longer than that, right? But PowerShell back in like 2017, when I first got a job in enterprise IT and had an IT position before that at all, new to Active Directory, new to corporate management of devices, and get popped into a desktop support position. And pretty quickly, I'd already been poking around the edges of scripting, batch scripting, and here and there, occasional dips into PowerShell, but I didn't understand it. I had no idea what was going on. And so, yeah, it was probably, 7, 8 years ago that I really started diving in because I had to, managing a local call center, not managing, but doing IT support for that. I was the only person on site for IT. So you can imagine if I would have had to hit up all those devices one by one in person on foot, yeah, that's not going to fly.
Wow.
So PowerShell had to. So it took a while. When I can still remember how I thought about it originally because I came from, bash scripting on Mac OS, right? It's just text. That's the crazy thing. It took so long to grasp the object nature of PowerShell, but once I did, and I can remember what it was like before, I was so confused. Like, what's going on with this array? Why is there a list? Why does this say sometimes system.string and other times it says what the string is? Why does it have this array with the weird 0 on it? Just the silly things that I now know. That's how it works. It's turning your object into a string. But if you don't know that and you're just expecting text to move around, it's weird. And I think, I don't know. I find it hard to imagine that the larger world on Linux or Mac OS has not moved to an object-oriented shell like PowerShell. That I'm sure that I know that bash scripting works great. I write it all the time, but PowerShell makes it so much easier. So yeah, I looked that way and never looked back. Started off writing little scripts, just ad hoc, saving them and running them locally or with PSExec. Moved on to remote deployment software to multiple, and now I write automations for backend stuff, but it's still hitting devices here and there. It's always good.
Would you consider yourself a PowerShell developer?
I don't think so. Now, there's people out there who are legitimately PowerShell developers. What I'm doing, I'd say, in our organization is writing glue, right? Those automation pieces that put the other pieces together and keep them there and make sure everything is safe and sane. And so, maybe other people on my team would consider me a PowerShell developer, but I'm not contributing to PowerShell code. Like I'm not writing C#. I've used classes a little bit, but not much. But what I have done a lot of is module development internally. We have a whole set of modules for interacting with our various systems, a central authentication mechanism for it, and it's all built into our automation platform. So I don't know. Does that make me a PowerShell developer? I'm
It kind of
honestly not
does.
sure.
It might
I
be
don't know.
gatekeeping not to, for sure. But
I
I
guess
get
so,
what your
yeah.
point. Like if you're writing glue rather than code that's actually being used, you could see it being a slight difference. But I mean, if you're writing code and
Maybe.
contributing it and checking it in and PRs and all that, I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah.
That sounds like
Well, I'll tell you, we weren't using GitHub until just 3 or 4 years ago at all,
smokes.
in our ops team, right? And so the journey to spinning that up has been fun. But yeah, now we've got GitHub, we do PRs, we have our repos, we have tests, we've got GitHub actions on some things, right? It's interesting. So yeah, as that developer, it might be.
It might
Depends.
be leader as well. That's one thing I noticed about you. Whenever you get to meet somebody in real life, you can it's easier to see them for who they are. And I read you to be someone who really does care about helping others and teaching other people. And yeah, learning what you can, but also sharing it along the way. And I'm curious
Absolutely.
how that's been in your work environment, because I think that's probably where you dedicate most of your efforts. That's where most of us do, right? Where we spend like 8
That's
hours a day.
true.
What's
Yeah,
that journey
yeah.
been
I
like
messed
for you?
around. Well, it's been really, honestly, looking back, um, it's been kind of serendipitous that it even happened. But thinking about how that came about, let's imagine, right? You're in IT ops, like I was, and there's people who write code, but they've got it saved on their local machine, or maybe it's on a server, it's running as a scheduled task. So we had a team, two teams really, and we've all got code running in different places. I've got, a virtual machine running things here, and the Citrix team has things running on controllers there, and each person has their own little separate code folder, sometimes not even in OneDrive, just on their computer. So it came to the point where this just wasn't sustainable. I started writing, functions and modules to interact with our various systems, and I needed first a way to share those with others, and second, to find a way to help people get on board with central management of automations, and not just that, but central management of code. So it was 2021. Me and a colleague had a sit down chat with our manager. I said, "Hey, we have been writing code, right? It's code, right? It's scripts, it's modules, it's functions, it's PowerShell, it's code, and we're at a point now where we have so many automation plans. We need backing, basically, so that we can develop a central platform, and we need some management, motivation, maybe set on others, so that they are also going to help out with this process, and not just help. It's not about controlling here. It's about making sure that we have eyes on what we're looking at. So we started that process. We looked for a platform to run our automations off of. Again, they were just running on whatever disparate servers they were. We found a platform. It's PowerShell Universal. Works great. We use it extensively. We have a multi-server deployment of that. It's really, really nice. We'd standardized on that. I set up GitHub repository for the various things we use. And when you think of a GitHub repository, right, a lot of the times you're thinking of a single product or application, but we have those. Our modules have their own GitHub repos. That's one thing. But when we started this journey, I'll tell you, I was new to GitHub too. Or not GitHub, but Git, right? So I was new to Git, new to GitHub, new to the whole code repository thing. So first we had the automation platform, and then we had the code repository push, where we learned Git, we learned the way you do PRs, and that that made our module development a lot smoother. It makes, central code repository is just essential when it comes to making sure things are standardized and accessible. They're discoverable too. So other people on the team, I don't have to send you a PS1 file over chat now. I can send you a link to get the GitHub and say, hey, if you want this, you have to get it. Now, I'll admit this verbally, although I might not have at the time. It's a great way to say, hey, if you want my code, you need to have a GitHub account in our organization. That's a great way to get people to actually set up an account there. So a little bit of a carrot to get them into there, and that has worked great. So everyone on the team as of last year is finally active in GitHub on a regular basis. It's so we've got probably a dozen people, and it's been really cool to see. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, 0.
Okay, so some questions come to mind. Sounds like, are these people who have traditionally already had jobs where they're using Git all the time, or is this a transition that you're making for the org and also for your coworkers, like having to upskill them as well, and yourself, it sounds like?
Yeah, it was just for the team that I'm on. Other teams in the organization, other departments, we would chat, but we're still trying to work toward a more like centralized and standardized process there. So this was really focused on the team, the individuals that I work with on a daily basis, getting them skilled up, and setting the appropriate standards and requirements for things so that we can have discoverable, accessible code.
Nice. And did you have to do internal trainings though? Like, I don't know, get everybody up to speed on the basics of Git?
Yeah, trainings for PowerShell have been happening. And here's an example of what a big topic that comes up, and it still does. Let's say you're writing code and you have a large collection. Let's say you've got a collection of devices, and then you fetch another list, maybe all of your users, and then you need to match up the device's user property with the rest of the user's property. Now, you might naively just say, oh, pipe your devices.user, where your user's collection equals that account name. Well, what this looks like, it's 2 large collections being compared one to another. And so let's say you have 10,000 devices and 5,000 users. Well, 10,000 times 5,000 means your script is going to be running for hours and hours, because where object in that way is slow. And so part of the training that we do is best practices for collection handling, and really making sure that your script doesn't take 12 hours or 16 hours to run, but instead takes 20 minutes. And that is an example that I've seen just in the past 3 months, where I found a script. It was running in our automation server for 16 hours, and it just needed a little bit of sprucing up. So it's that kind of thing that we're training, right? My goal is to give people the tools that they need to be proficient, so that they not only understand what they're doing, but why. It's not always about chasing performance improvements either. A huge thing. Let's think back to the days when we had disparate scripts running on separate servers. One of the biggest issues that would always come up is authentication handling. How do you authenticate? Where do you get your credentials for that service account that can manage those VMs? Where do you get that API token that you can use to query, Splunk or something, right? So without a central authentication handling system, everyone's just storing them as, well, hopefully they're not storing them as plain text, although that did used to happen. Does not anymore, that's for sure. But sometimes they'd be stored as local Windows credential manager instances. And then whenever you need to update it, those API tokens expire, those credentials rotate. Now you have to remember every single place you had that set. So another big piece of our automation puzzle, right? We've got our automation platform where things are centrally organized. We've got Git repositories so that our code is shareable and accessible and managed and tested and has actions linked to it. And then we've got our authentication handling system, which allows us to have central authentication using a secrets vault, so that no one has to remember which servers they save those credentials on. So it's instead, you just update it once in the central vault, and now when your script runs on our server or on one of many, it fetches it dynamically. So it's all those things, right? It all comes together.
Yep, and you've lived it. And after this word from our sponsors, we're going to hear more about best practices and how to get your team to actually follow them.
This is the PowerShell Podcast.
Most of you know the PowerShell Podcast is sponsored and made possible by PDQ. I've had questions from listeners asking, what's PDQ and what do you do? Well, we help IT teams automate endpoint management. PDQ Connect is our cloud-based tool for real-time software deployment, patching, scripting, remote access, and vulnerability management. It's fast, flexible, and built for people who just want things to work. If you want to see it in action, head to pdq.com/podcast and check out our interactive demo. No signups, no emails, no credit card, just a fast and easy way to explore how it works. That's pdq.com/podcast. Automated endpoint management that doesn't slow you down.
Now, back to the PowerShell Podcast.
So we're talking about best practices and how to get your team to follow them and implementing them, which is really impressive work. And it's what we should all strive for, because not every org out there is following all these best practices. In fact, pretty much none of them are. So if you find yourself in the position of listening to this kind of a podcast and being into this kind of stuff, you probably also have an opportunity to sort of be a trailblazer in the way that David has kind of expressed here, where you can dabble around, start getting better, start pushing new things that help the business ultimately and help yourselves. And it sounded like you were kind of even talking about tackling credential management for them, kind of on the higher level. So not everyone has to go through that journey themselves. There's kind of like an accepted way of going about that. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So, and I'll tell you this too. It really did start with being able to say that our manager has got the backing for this. And not all orgs are like that. Some orgs don't have, they've got really hands-off leadership. And some orgs have really hands-on leadership where if the leader doesn't say, do this, it doesn't happen. I'd say we're kind of in the middle. And so I think about people I've talked to at other orgs when they're trying to implement this kind of setup, moving to a more standardized automation setup. It's tough sometimes to get those leaders motivated. So what we did was tell them, present the benefits, right? Hey, we need our code to be clean. We need to not have any more, secrets and plain text and scripts. We need to not have scripts out of date running on random servers. So yeah, we got that backing and ran with it. So yeah, lots of components there, and I'd say that authentication it's a big piece. We're using Azure Key Vault specifically for our use case. We've got app registrations that we connect to that. It's loaded into our automations environment, and it's so much more convenient. Now we do also have a enterprise secrets store, a vault, right? But that is not accessible, or it wasn't until recently. We've since migrated, it is now. But it wasn't accessible via code. So we had to develop the solution ourselves. And so I did that, right? I created the standards for how to save these things, how to fetch them, how we make sure that this is secured. So you've got to have certificates on the devices that are fetching them, or managed identities. And again, we're a big Microsoft shop, so we're in Azure, right? So we've got managed server identities there. So the way the info is fetched is secure. And then it removed all the friction. Now you just say, get our custom get credential function, and there you go, you've got it. And so I have a central management thing. So even we use this not just on our automation platform on those servers, but also on our workstations. So yeah, you load up, you connect to an API, It fetches the creds, it stashes your creds, it creates the token, it fetches the bearer token if it needs to. All that stuff I've got standardized setups for. And yeah, thinking back, it was a lot of work. But it
Sounds like it.
now, yeah, now if I need to blast out a new API module, I can do it in a day. I I wrote a internal module for Apple Business Manager. We have a lot of Macs and iOS devices, so we often need to do stuff with their. Anyway, Apple Business Manager lets you handle pre-enrollment for those, but they didn't have an API until last month. Well, they finally released it, not with any .NET libraries or C# examples or anything. Just it's documented. It's on the web. It's pretty usable. And after developing API modules for a bunch of other stuff, it's pretty easy. So yeah, wrote that out. It uses JSON web tokens. It's just cool to see. And now I can publish that module to our internal repo. Everyone can use it. All they have to do is install it. They've already got our central authentication handling. So yeah, they install module, connect, and they're good. They can fetch it now.
Boom. And I think that's the benefit of having like an advanced tool set and kind of maturing in time is you can crank out solutions quite quickly, and they're, maintainable in the same way that all your other stuff is, which makes me wonder. And I want to dive more into some of the challenges about actually kind of leading change. But are you taking advantage of like templates? Are you using the .vs code folder, the .github folder to kind of set preferences? Any of that?
Oh, yeah. But we haven't distributed that. And we're not at that level. Maybe someday. But I do it myself.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've distributed that.
So do you have like standards on braces?
Oh, the one true brace style. Absolutely.
That might be a good thing to include in the VS Code thing.
But you make a good point. I'll have to look into that. There's
That'd be an easy one.
I recommend. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. In the trainings that I've run, I point people to the PowerShell style manual.
Posh code, yeah.
Yeah, there's a big one on GitHub that I can't remember who wrote it.
I think it's J. Cole.
Yeah, that sounds right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been. I point to that and I say, hey, does your code follow these rules? Then it's going to be better for everyone. And so yes, braces, the one true brace style. You put your curly brace, started on the same line as your keyword, and then you end it. And if you have an else, that goes after it on the end, and then your final ending right below on its own line. So you got it. Those one true brace styles, it makes it so much easier to read. I don't know. I'm sure people can do it otherwise, but
yeah, it helps to just choose something and stick with it, though. At least for whatever work, if your org chooses one, all good. If you take advantage of the .vs code folder, you can have it automatically, format on save and all that kind of thing, automatically for you with the whatever preference they have. So you can type however you want, and then just get slurped into the appropriate way. But I'm a big fan of .github.vs code as just sort of easy wins. And also, templating too, if you want to get some pester tests for checking for maybe some of the best practices that you teach about in your sessions. Anyways, more work. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah,
thanks for giving me some work. Here's more.
No, I know. I always say, pester right around the corner. And I've done a little bit with it, but we've yet to have trainings on that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's tough. It's always, the way I see people get started a lot is they just use pre-canned ones that are like known good that test to make sure that you have help and that you have one example and all that kind of, standard stuff we should all have. Verb, noun even. And then just run those. And then you can say you're using pester tests, even though they're not actually written for your.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
That's an unethical life hack right there. So it's my pro tip for the day.
It counts, though.
It right. does. And it's better than nothing. And once you have it there, it's easier to like, I guess they're already running. I just create another one. It's already looping through the whole folder, and then bada boom, some good profits there. But
yeah,
leading change.
You're talking about when it comes to code development at that level, right? I'll tell you, not everyone is going to be at the same place. And so, whereas I'm writing modules, putting those into Git and pushing those into a local repository. Others are writing scripts, and they're not yet comfortable with module development. They have the odd function in there too, but it's been interesting to see how how those skills develop over time. But it takes time, and I'll tell you. I mean, coming at you honestly, from an IT operations perspective in a large organization, we've got tens of thousands of employees and devices and everything. Uh, the biggest thing we could ever hope for is more time, right? More time to be
Yep.
able to get those skills and level them up. Um, if only.
I feel
There's
that.
always some new disaster, catastrophe, but yeah, someday. And I'll tell you, it's getting better though. The more we set up and automations, the more time we have for more automations.
Yep. You create more room for yourself. And then it just gets better and better. Oh, the future is so bright. David Richmond.
Yeah.
I have to say, templating does sound like it might be quite useful for what you're describing, right? You have people who maybe aren't at the level of writing modules. Well, they can take advantage of your very consistent pre-built function template that incorporates all the stuff you guys would normally have. Maybe create one for an API, one for whatever.
Boilerplate.
Exactly. I've had a lot of great
Yeah.
success. If someone knows how to code, even in not PowerShell, you can allow them to do things that way. Show them a little bit about how to run and test PowerShell, and they can run with it. But yeah, templating seems like it might be a decent fit for that. Again, there's the time investment, but
That's true. Yeah, we've got our standard function boilerplate down, and it's just a matter of getting people comfortable with it. So I've seen great results, right? Not just PowerShell. We also have a lot of data and analytics that we do. So I run trainings for Power BI, and so that's fun. And seeing people's skills develop there from not understanding Power BI at all to deploying these crazy comprehensive data sets and dashboards. It's just cool to see. So yeah, like you said, there's a lot of options that we'll have to take advantage of in the future. Testing templates.
There's always more. Some people, I think earlier today, we were talking to a person who was like, they don't know much PowerShell, but they want to learn a little bit about everything before they dive in. There's a lot out there to learn before you dive in, and even once you start diving in, to reach it all. I think we talked about abstract syntax tree recently. There's a lot of stuff out there that can challenge you over time, and to get to all of it is, I don't know if it's always possible for people.
Well, there's no better way to start than just passively absorbing it, even if that is all you're doing. I'll tell you, I joined the Microsoft PowerShell. Well, I guess it's kind of semi-official, but the PowerShell Discord server years and years ago, and just watching the back and forth conversations that happen there, you see so much. You're like, is that possible? You can do that? Or maybe it's not directly relevant, but it stays in the back of your mind. And years down the road, be like, wait a minute. You're accessing the properties on that .NET object in this way, and I need to do that now, right? It's cool. So I recommend everyone join as many of those community resources as they can, even if you're not planning to participate actively. Just be in there, watch the chat here and there. You will probably see something that helps you at some point. So yeah, that's a big thing. I tell the team, right, we've got meetups, a handful of meetups in the US and some internationally. I'm like, hey guys, there's virtual meetups you can go to. Great opportunities to just listen and learn. So yeah, this podcast has been great too. I recommended it. And then those PowerShell Discord servers, it just doesn't get better.
PowerShell Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Come get your fix. Yeah,
that's right.
I totally agree with you. There's so much to be said for, learning the topic they're talking about, learning how they talk about it, learning the little way they navigate their code and they handle errors. Like there's so many small things you could take away. And over time, you're able to sort of just like a sponge, absorb some of it and apply it. And I think there's just such a magical point that happens in PowerShell. Like whenever you look at scripts, there's a lot of maybe confusing characters or things you haven't seen before. But as time goes on, as you learn these new things, if you learn what a hash table is, if you learn what splatting is, all of a sudden these crazy characters that are different than just your normal command with parameters start to make sense. And then the world is your oyster. You can solve any problem. The kind of stuff you're doing, you can do that once you know the lay of the land and kind of step through it a couple times.
Yeah, it's true. And just getting in there, I'll tell you, like I said, when I was still learning it, the object nature of PowerShell and the pipeline, it took it took a while to understand what was going on. And the way I did it was just brute force, trying it over and over, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and asking for help, right? Never hurts. That PowerShell Discord, like I said, has been great resource. But yeah, you just eventually that light bulb will go on. That it may take some time, but it will go on. And once it does, you'll see there's it's great.
Yep, just keep showing up, keep doing little things, take your little next step. I used to say that a lot. That was like maybe my motto of 2024 is take your next step. But it's always relevant, you know. There's a lot of steps that need to be taken, but once you get there, gosh, is it not the most rewarding thing to be able to really have a handle on language and use it to solve problems and just get into that flow state where things are just top of the fingers, you know, just floating off?
It really is cool. It's crazy to imagine. But once you get comfortable with it, you've got a problem and you might not know how to solve it, but you know how to discover how to solve it. And that's what's really key. Once you got the fundamentals down, you can do anything. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think earlier, it might have been quite a while ago now, but you mentioned APIs and you've written modules for APIs before, so you can knock them out really quick. That is, I think, another big turning point for a PowerSheller is when you can actually realize that, holy crap, I can actually interact with APIs and call external things, then tie all kinds of things across the world together. That is a whole nother moment. And APIs are very confusing. They're totally like different than anything else in PowerShell because they're like a different thing. But once you understand generally how they work, you can apply those to PowerShell, but also take them with you and borrow the things you learn in many other areas of IT. You'll run into interacting with APIs or, you know, understanding how the queries work will be beneficial to you. Now all of a sudden you're a senior IT person rocking, and it all started with just a little bit of PowerShell passion. Yeah.
Yeah, from batch scripts to PowerShell to automation platform, and honestly, there's more to come. It's cool to know. Like again, wouldn't call myself a hardcore developer, but the journey has been fun. I'm having fun. That's what I say to people. Like, this stuff is fun. If you ask me a PowerShell question at work, well, I'm probably gonna answer you. As soon as it's a fun thing. Do I find that like tedious? No way. Like, would I prefer to I don't know, set up device configurations on Intune all day? No, I don't think so. I'd rather script that out so I can deploy the whole thing whenever it comes time to. So yeah, it's cool to see. And I hope that other people have picked up on that passion. I've seen, you know, over the years, other people on other teams that I've been mentoring, they've developed their skills, and it's just really cool. I think that we sometimes don't remember, you know, what it was like to learn, and so helping other people to learn keeps you in a good mindset. So you just stay in your own, you know, stay in yourself and understand what it's like to not get it, and then to start to get it, and then to get it. So it's been really cool to watch that. Personally, like to watch myself go through that, and now to watch others. It's really rewarding, right? Education
it really is
great.
It's wholesome as heck, but it is just so much fun too.
Much.
Like, it's rewarding in a similar way to me. Like sometimes video games is like, it's just so cool. It just feels awesome. I don't know, like whenever you get like some kind of bonus or something, that's what it feels like. It's like, yay, hey, because you benefit on your own already from learning this stuff, but then you get to see it in others. And it's sort of like we like code in the way that it helps us be efficient and solve problems with like one time rather than redoing it every time. Same kind of thing. Like, you're taking your skills, and if you're able to help somebody build it for themselves, all of a sudden your force has been multiplied a little bit. And if you've seen the light of PowerShell and how like efficiency and automation can help you, it's hard to not let that also be kind of motivational of like, holy crap, my skills are multiplying. I'm not the only one who knows PowerShell now. Other people can contribute.
Exactly.
Like it's fun. It's a fun journey, and anyone can go on.
It
That's the
really
thing. It
is.
takes, different people, different lengths of times, different job things need to happen here and there, but you got to start that journey. And if you're listening this far into a podcast and you haven't dove into PowerShell yet, take your first step. Like David said, there's so many supportive people all around the world. Anywhere you'll look, we have one of the best communities. It really is filled with people who have kind of seen the light of PowerShell and are so happy to spread that with others. I mean, I think that's really the space I live in, is just interacting with people who are super passionate about PowerShell and interacting with people who are maybe newer to it and just seeing them kind of grow together. It's awesome.
100% agreed. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
Oh, it's just such a funny thing too. Just like this programming language, this scripting language, this automation platform would lead to so much different stuff, so many cool people that we've gotten to meet. Like you, I think we met maybe like 3 or 4 years ago on Discord, or I think you said maybe the PDQ webcast.
Yeah, one of those meetups. It's a while back, but yeah, it's been
I
fun.
think
And
I got to meet you in
met
person
a lot of people
too.
through there. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you came to the
came up
Gainesville.
there.
You were a speaker in the flesh. We got to hang out. But I've known you online for a very long time.
Yeah, it's been great, and I love what you've got here, and seeing the community that it develops around this, and honestly, like I said, the more community resources, the better. You don't have that with every language, right? I mean, with most, yeah, but I just can't say enough good things about if you're learning PowerShell, right? There's no stupid questions, and it's just so cool. And then you turn those random questions into random hangouts, and you make some friends out of it. That's great.
Yep. And your career progresses and just good things happen all around. Things get lighter at work because more things are automated. You can do more things that you like and add some W's to the resume. It's just good all around. And we invite you to join us on the journey. But hey, man, I was thinking about something. If there was a zombie outbreak, okay, we'll say this. If there was an IT equivalent to a zombie outbreak, I would call you. I'd be like, hey, we need to tackle this. You would be on my zombie outbreak for an IT thing.
Love to hear it.
So just be ready.
Man. I'll keep the proverbial shotguns loaded.
What do you dabble in tech-wise outside of PowerShell?
Yeah, so a little bit of front-end web testing, because I see the cool things our product engineers build for our customers. And I don't know, React, what was that? And now I know a little bit more about it, right? I've been walking myself through some of that. And then probably the next biggest thing after PowerShell is data stuff. Like I mentioned, Power BI. We recently got a new member on the team that has a whole buildup of an Azure Data Factory, and I've been working with our enterprise data team to start standardizing the way that we not only automate things happening, executions, but also to standardize the way in which we report on those things, the way in which they're logged, and then the artifacts from those, making sure that we've got those available historically. And so there's two cool things that I've been doing there. One is, actually, this was a couple years ago. I want to highlight this because this is part of the whole leadership push that I used way back when. Way back when, 3 years ago. People don't always understand the value that automation brings, and so I came up with a mechanism and a formula to calculate time savings and from our automations. And so every automation that we run has a standard boilerplate use that logs its execution and how many times, or a bunch of different things, to Azure Log Analytics. And that data is collated and combined with how much time did that save us in reality. And those numbers are a little bit fuzzy sometimes, but you can get pretty close. And then we have that collected in Power BI, and there's a dashboard that I could pull it up right now. It's called Automation Accounting. And this updates every day. It shows how many hours of time our automations have saved. across the board. It shows, who's the owner of this, who implemented it, what system is it running on, what does it do, how much time did that one save, and we can see the trends over time. And so we start at like 20 or 30 hours a week, and now we're up to hundreds of hours a week. It's incredible. And that right there, that dashboard, because they're gonna think hours saved, what is that in money? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. So that has been an instrumental part of getting leadership involved, is having the access to the options and then creating the functions in there to make that happen. So yeah, that's been a big thing. But other data stuff, right? We've got tons of reporting that we do, lots of compliance checks. So yeah, big data is the next big piece that we're doing, right? Be able to ask questions about what happened here and why. That's cool. So lots of fun in Azure Data Factory.
Okay, but I think that you got a little tactical with your planning of how to take over with best practices, is what it sounds like. Like, being able to drive things forward with numbers is so important. And to have the foresight to get it done sooner than later, these leaders, they do think in numbers. That is generally how a lot of it kind of goes. And you can come armed with that's so helpful. Like, if anyone's trying to get any kind of PowerShell, anything done, being able to show the efforts of all this time that you're sinking in, maybe it's extra hours as well, but you're investing a lot of time in gaining these skills. What does it result in other than your boss seeing you in VS Code more often?
Exactly. Right. Being able to put numbers on it. Yeah, again, right. At the end of the day, if you're doing the work, it's saving, but you got to be able to show your work, at the end of the day, you got to be able to. And hey, the execs love those big numbers on a presentation. So it really helps. Throw that on your performance evaluation at the end of the year. Created automation, save this many dozens of hours per week, right? Eat that stuff up.
Absolutely. And you might even be able to use it for justification to go to a conference potentially, depending on where you work, or at least free you up and have them realize, holy crap, these automations that little Timmy is performing are really saving us a bunch of money. Let's have more of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been great. That's one of the key components.
Yeah. I didn't do something as elaborate. I mean, I like the thought of having a website. It really emphasizes it. But I would just keep track of every single thing I did. I wrote a module for my ticketing system. So within the script, we would create a ticket. We would log time to the ticket and assign it to a particular user. And then I could do reporting on that. But having the website is very accessible. And it really is oh my gosh. Oh, David with the PowerShell. Just let him go. That's what you want. It really is what you want.
Exactly.
You have to communicate your wins, or else, maybe if your manager knows, they're kind of going to be happy for you, but you got to sell yourself in your projects a little bit.
Yeah, not just for your, it's good for you, it's good for your manager, it's also good for other teams, right? I've given this tooling to other teams that have also implemented it in the org, and it's just cool. It's awesome to see. So we're still on that journey, but we've got our standards. We're still working on them. We've got our tracking, and we've got, again, the numbers to put on the presentations to make the VPs happy. So, it's silly work stuff, right? It's corporate stuff, but at the end of the day, I have to say, couldn't be happier to be doing some of it.
Yeah, but I think it also emphasizes something that I found to be true after doing hundreds of episodes of this, which is that, tech is a problem, but oftentimes where you're going to run into roadblocks is when interacting with humans. And, being able to bring numbers addresses part of that. Figuring out how in your company you communicate and get things done. Is it through leadership buy-in? Is it through, doing the project and having it be successful and selling that win? You have to be able to read your org and pivot based on that. And it's going to involve a different skill set than all the PowerShell-y stuff, just a little bit.
It's true. A little bit of communication, a little bit of PR spin. Not everyone's going to understand the benefits or the beauty of splatting, the majesty. They're not going to get it, but they're going to get, the results when you show them the dashboard at the end of the day.
That's right. Gosh. Yeah. Well, heck of a conversation, man. You've really done quite a bit with PowerShell. And I love hearing the other side though too, of like actually getting change driven at an organization. I think a lot of people write PowerShell and they write beautiful code, but spreading that across others is a different skill that I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for, because it just, there's something really gratifying about it too, right? Because you're making this workplace better for many other people, or at least your team. That's all we can aspire to do with our jobs. They're going to pay us either way. We might as well make our environment we work in as good as possible within those hours. Don't work yourself too much, but while you're there, be invested. It feels good when things go right. I mean, I'm sure you can maybe speak to that. You've invested a lot of kind of passion, probably to a certain extent, into getting some of these things on the road or, implemented. But doesn't it feel good?
I've used
or
my
what?
insomnia to good effect, I'll say. There's been late nights and it's been worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It's very fun. And now you get to kind of just, gosh, I feel like an unk or an old head or an older person, because just seeing the growth of others, whether that's within your team, within the community out there, it's just the best thing in the world. And that's what we get to see all the time in the PowerShell community. But hey, quick question, pro tip, off the cuff, anything PowerShell related, give us one pro tip.
You can write a PS readline custom key handler to automatically wrap your line in parentheses in case you want to do dot walk navigation. This is so specific, but let's say you're in the console, you're typing out a command. I do this all the time. I end up doing like nested select object expand, but that's such a nightmare. So I finally figured out how to write a custom key handler in PS readline. So now I just hit Alt period and it puts parentheses around it. And now I can dot walk through the properties. And it's the coolest thing ever. Should definitely, I wish I could publicize it.
That's
because I am here. So
that is a pro tip. I will say that. And I'm impressive that you pulled that one off the cuff quite so quickly. But hey, people enjoyed hearing from you. They're inspired. They're shaken in a good way. Where can they connect with you online to learn more and just generally keep up with you?
Well, you can almost always find me at least lurking about in the PowerShell Discord or the PDQ Discord PowerShell. I've got the social medias, but I honestly have not been keeping up with them. It's a challenge, right? Put a lot of energy into work, and at the end of the day, I just want to chill. So,
mostly there. Yeah, check you out in the PowerShell scripting channel of the PDQ Discord. I know we're always having some shenanigans in there. PowerShell Wednesdays every single Wednesday. Check out the PowerShell podcast every single Monday. Been dropping episodes for years without missing a single week. And hey, here's been another one. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, comment, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Comment below if you are a splatter. And if you're not a splatter, it's okay. Just start splatting. Help about splatting. Check out the PowerShell Wednesday. Links to everything we talked about will be below. David, it's great to get to chat. That's what I love about the podcast, just getting to chat with friends for a bit. So nice catching up with you. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for the chat. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.